Hi, I'm Dr. Mary Shackleton. Thanks for joining today. We're in Boulder, Colorado with two people I'm super excited to be with. This is Jules Pelayev and Joe Shulman, co-founders of The Conscious Cleanse. So we're going to talk about this amazing cleanse. This is the book that they wrote, and I'm going to ask them a little bit about their journey in writing the cleanse and having people join their detox. Thanks for being with us today. I'm so excited. As female entrepreneurs in Boulder, Colorado, we can be really proud to have kind of a groundswell of support around our businesses. So it's great to have you here today.
Thank you.
Tell me a little bit about how the Conscious Cleanse came to be.
So Jules and I had very different starting points, but our starting points really indicated and informed the Conscious Cleanse. About now over 10 years ago in 2004, I was riding my bike across the country with 12 high school kids. And I got hit by a truck going 70 miles per hour on my bike and ended up breaking my back in 7 places. And was about to enter the next phase to go to medical school. And as a result of my accident, I couldn't. I was told that I was going to be disabled, that I would never live a normal life. And I ended up gaining about 40 pounds. I was in major chronic pain at a level of a 9 every day. And I just got really depressed. So I spent a long time just floundering, and conventional medicine told me, over 20 doctors, here's Percocet, here's Prozac, take these 2 pills to help with your pain and your depression, and on my way. And so I spent a lot of years doing that until I started thinking, well, what if there's an alternative way to look at this? I don't have to be in pain. I don't have to be on pills. What if I looked at food and the healing power of food, and started looking at nutrition and alternative methods of healing? And that really changed things for me quite a bit. I had some bumps in the road. I tried lots of diets where I would, starve myself or take diet pills or cayenne pepper and water and, counted points and did those things that, every diet on the market. And then I realized that was more of a self-hatred type of way of looking at food. And so I started looking at food in a more holistic way, in a healing way. And that was really remarkable because we had the same kind of goal of looking at food as medicine. And Jules has a different place that she started, but when we came together, we were like, okay, we want to see how we can feel more vibrant in our own skins. And that's what kind of was the spark that lit our Conscious Cleanse journey.
Yeah, we came together after, we both found out that we were in nutrition school, and I had always been kind of an experimenter with food, from the early days of my upbringing, probably as early as 7th grade. I remember eating something and then saying, well, that made me feel not so good. Why would I eat that if it made me tired? Or why would I eat that if it gave me stomach cramps? And that sort of led me into kind of being an experimenter with food. And after I got turned on to yoga in the early 2000, I did a deep dive into the raw food world and just saw the immense power that real food was having in people's lives and their health. And I was hungry for that. Literally, how can you attain that level of vibrant health? Nobody's talking about this. And people, I want to know about this. And so Joe and I came together, like Joe said, with very different nutritional profiles, and the ways that we ate and still do eat are very different. But to find some common denominators that are really, not rocket science. It's going back to the basics. It's simple. It's about eating real food and then tuning in to see how that food makes you feel. And that's really what's informed the Conscious Cleanse.
When did you know you had something here that was a program?
Well, we piloted this 2-week program on ourselves, and really we're thinking of starting a business. We were like, we just want to feel better. And after 2 weeks, my pain went from a 9 to a 5.
Wow.
Which was amazing. And I just felt like I was so lit up because I get goosebumps every time I say it because it was a game changer in my life. I felt like I got my life back. And I lost 15 pounds, which I was never able to do. I've just been the person in 2 weeks.
Wow.
And that was inflammation.
Right.
I was reducing inflammation.
She looked like a different person. So as someone who knew her before and after, and even has pictures before and after, When I saw Jo after about 10 days of piloting the program, I was like, her whole face structure had changed. So I could see her cheekbones, the whites of her eyes, and the blue was super bright. And I was like, I was also feeling it. I had a different starting point where I already thought I was pretty healthy. And actually, I thought I was doing all the right things. Like I was a vegetarian and I was doing soy food and I was eating cottage cheese and yogurt and these things that, you know, we were told by conventional wisdom are health foods and they're good for you. And like, you know, put your soy protein in your shakes and that's what you need to do to feel good. But I witnessed that change in Jo, which was really remarkable.
And Jules, her skin started glowing and her adult acne went away and gas and bloating.
Yeah, the stomach
Dairy.
cramps that I always dealt with.
That you didn't know.
Had no idea.
Yeah.
But we also piloted, so we worked through the kinks on ourselves, and then we were both teaching yoga at a yoga studio here locally in Boulder, and we took about 10 to 15 people through the program, and we saw people shifting ailments that they had been walking around with for years, whether that was chronic pain like Jo or cholesterol issues. I mean, there were so many things in that first group that we were like, this is really working. Like it didn't just work for us, but we were seeing it among the participants as well. And people having shifts really in their mentality too of how they were approaching their life.
Yeah.
You know, like looking at like, okay, I'm changing my diet and there's this ripple effect and I have more mental clarity. And so now I'm making different decisions with what I want to do with my life.
Absolutely.
And I mean, just really amazing, profound things that you wouldn't expect.
But complex.
Yeah,
Totally,
exactly.
Totally.
Yeah.
Like we make it so complicated. And, you know, after we started doing that.
And
people
food
were like,
is complicated.
I mean,
We've made it complicated.
Yeah. At this stage in the game, you're like, what do you eat? You know?
Right.
So people started saying, what are you guys doing? And seeing these participants. And so we just were like, oh, maybe we could take this online and start a business. And Jules had a background in online marketing.
Great.
Yeah, I had a vision of having an online global community of health seekers, people around the world who wanted to talk about this, you know, the idea that you could access vibrant health and do it in really simple ways with the food. I mean, it's just such a powerful concept. It's something that we do every single day. The food that we put in our mouths, and most of us are doing it without even realizing.
Unconsciously,
Unconsciously,
right?
yeah.
And I love the simplicity because I feel like it's accessible to everybody, and I feel like in this culture we've totally forgotten how to eat.
Yes.
We have forgotten that you need to chew to digest, and that you can't eat in your car, and that you can't eat at your desk or in between things. That our digestion is an activity,
That's
and
right.
so we have to support that, and food is a huge part of that.
Yeah.
Well, and that was a big miss that we saw in the health food world, is that there were juice cleansing wasn't as popular then as it is today, but the master cleanse, we had both tried that unsuccessfully. And then all the supplement based programs that they were saying, you know, buy these expensive supplements, but don't worry about your diet. Don't worry, this will take care of it.
Right. Yeah.
And that seemed like a really big missed opportunity to me, because we wanted to create something that people could, you know, basically sustain the benefits that they're getting in the 2 weeks, and sustain that and then build upon that. If you keep doing it, you're just going to keep feeling better.
And get off that diet mentality, because I think that's huge. My experience with trying so many diets was that I always felt like a failure, and there was this guilt and shame around food, and there was this scale and all of these things that honestly, if I ate a bite of something that I shouldn't have eaten, quote, I just was like, screw it. All right, where's the ice cream? I'm gonna eat the whole thing.
Right.
And so changing people's mentality around not being, you know, punishing themselves
Right,
and
the
being
self-talk
kind,
around food.
that is like, again, a huge game changer.
I feel chemically that when people are eating sugar and dairy and gluten and all those inflammatory foods, it increases their cravings.
Yes.
So they're actually a victim of their biochemistry, and they're not lacking in willpower. It's that, certain kids crave dairy because they're sensitive to it, which I can never explain that phenomenon, but it's a real phenomenon.
And that's what we say.
Yeah.
We're like,
What do you
people are like,
crave?
what are you allergic to? We say, what do you love and crave?
Right.
And that's
what you're probably allergic to.
Yes, which is
And you get
wild.
off
those allergic foods and your biochemistry shifts, and you actually never think about those foods. And it's hard to tell people that, but I always promise patients, if you're eating right, you will not crave food.
Yeah.
No,
yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
And sometimes it takes a little while. Like for me, again, I was eating like these bars that were only 2 points, but they had tons of sugar in them. And I was
Right.
like, all right, the whole box.
Yeah.
I can't eat one of these, But
Right.
then when I started getting clean and totally sugar was out, like you said, I didn't want to eat those things. Yeah.
You don't think about it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I can imagine that you've learned and watched lots of people get better, and I would imagine that maybe there have been some surprises along the way. What did you learn that you didn't expect to learn working with people?
Well, I think I personally experienced this, and I've seen tons of other people who go through our program, that when they add dark leafy greens, it is a total game changer in the way that, I was eating allergen free for a really long time, but I didn't have the dark leafy greens to reduce that inflammation in my body. And when people start adding a green smoothie and a big salad to their day, just those two things, their health gets so much better. So it's really cool that it doesn't have to be so hard either.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And it sounds
Again, simple but complex to
Yeah.
get people to do that. I always, every time I finish with a patient, I always say 7 to 9 servings of fruits and vegetables a day. Ideally more veggies.
Right.
But if people can do that, then the shift is apparent for sure. Yeah. And it's hard to get people to do that.
It is,
They
and
can
I
do
think
it.
one of the secrets to our approach there is we have a period called transition in the cleanse where it's optional, but we encourage it because it really teaches you how to start to add things in to your diet as opposed to focusing on everything you're going to take away.
Right.
Nobody wants to have their glass of wine taken away without a suitable replacement,
Something
or their
yummy.
coffee or their cheese, or the big things that people always talk about are those things.
Right.
And so we start transition by giving people a really delicious alternative that is ridiculously healthy too. And those two things have to go hand in hand.
so true.
I mean, as you spoke to, women are so used to being in this place of denial and beating themselves up about it. And so I always do that too. Like, let's put it in. And these are things that you'll grow to love. And I always use the example of, remember when people used to drink whole milk and then they switched to 2%
Yep.
and they could never go back to whole milk again. It was too rich. And I always use that
Yeah.
example for patients. Like, you will never go back to this because it won't taste good. And they
Yeah.
don't believe you, but it's true.
Yeah, yeah.
What do you find that cleansers struggle with the most?
Sugar, caffeine.
Alcohol, those three. Those are the big ones. It's the thing that wakes you up, the thing that numbs you out, and the thing that puts you to bed.
Yeah.
And it's, because we're using those as drugs. And I used to do that. I would literally have 2 to 3 peppermint patties before I went to bed every single night.
Knock you out.
Knock myself out. And I
Yeah.
kind of realized it. I was like, all right, here we go. Sugar. It's going to put me to bed. And of course, it's awful sleep. But we've seen that with our cleansers, people coming and they can't get their hold on sugar. And we actually created a low sugar plan over the past 2 years because we're seeing sugar, I think it's on the rise even more.
Yeah, even though we're talking about it.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
when we started this, I feel like sugar was there, but it wasn't as, people's guts weren't as destroyed as they are now. It wasn't in all sorts of foods that, they didn't know it was in. Or it's maybe hit this critical point where people's systems are, like, enough is enough. So this low sugar plan has been amazing for people because we're not into sugar on the conscious cleanse, but even fruits and natural sweeteners can be really hard for a lot of people.
They
We
still
always-
cause blood sugar shift.
Yeah, and we're all about, like you, being accessible. So, we want things to taste good. And for someone who's coming off York peppermint patties or
Yes.
Snickers or Coca-Cola or whatever it
Yeah.
is, like a date in their smoothie is okay,
Yeah.
right? We're like, okay, use this. It's a bridge. But then
That's
the
right.
more you cleanse your palate, and the more you get used to these new foods and the new routines, then you can kind of start to up level and start taking out even some of the natural sugars.
Yeah.
Which can then again just take people's health to a whole new level. So that's what I think what's interesting is I haven't found that there's a place a plateau. Like I just feel like you can keep going and continue to feel better and feel more vibrant and kind of keep up leveling.
That's so true. And we also noticed that people coming who couldn't lose weight and had hormone issues and major mood stability issues, that some of the things we were doing, it was really great and they felt better, but they didn't feel as great as they could have.
Right.
And so once we did this low sugar plan, mood issues, weight loss, hormone stuff has been really, really helpful for that.
Amazing.
I'm sure you notice that in your practice.
Yes, for sure. But you know, the
Beauty of the structure of your plan is that, you know, sometimes, and this is why I like to refer people to the conscious cleanse, is that sometimes when I tell people this is how you should eat, they don't have the backup support.
Yeah.
So that's the beauty of the conscious cleanse.
Well, and that is, I think, thank you for bringing that up, because I do think that we can identify, you know, foods that people struggle with, and there's still the habits. And we might break our chemical or physical addiction to something, but then we still have a habit of going to a birthday party, and this is what I do at a birthday party. So there's all these different situations, and it's so ingrained in our culture. I mean, that's a whole video, I feel like, in and of itself, because you have to start
Social support.
and then just like sort of just rewiring the way you think about things. You know, we don't want to guilt and shame ourselves, but we want to be prepared to make healthy decisions. And you know, I think that our program sets people up with that support system, you know, so that they, you know, you have a community of people who are all doing the same thing. If you have a slip up, you come to the community and you're like, you know, you sort of, you know,
reset,
cleanse your soul, so to speak. And then
confession.
You're like, all right, I'm good.
Do they actually confess it?
A lot of people do, and we're like, it's okay.
Oh,
like,
for
it's
sure.
not a big
Yeah.
deal.
Okay.
We're like, literally, we have a team of health coaches, and
Let
one
it
of the
go.
biggest things that we talk to them about is don't make people feel bad. Let's let them move on. The more you like dwell on this thing that you did, the more you're going to beat yourself up.
Because that's the old way, right? That's what we're used to doing, is guilting and shaming ourselves.
I always ask patients to use that as a teachable moment for
Yeah.
themselves. Like,
Yeah.
how can you not
Yes.
do it next time?
Yes.
Like, don't beat yourself up
Yes.
about it.
Yeah.
I also feel like there's not very many role models for this way of eating. Even though it's simple, our diet, everything is so complicated. It's all packaged, it's in plastic, there's way too much sugar and everything. And there are very few people that are doing it visibly well, so that people can actually learn from them and gain strength from, you know, changing their behaviors. It's hard to do by yourself.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, one of the things that when people come to our program, we say eat more veggies and fruits that are raw, and that's one of our principles. And we think that's wonderful because raw food, it really has lots of enzymes and great minerals and makes people feel wonderful. But for some people, if they eat raw veggies and they haven't been doing that before, or have major gut issues, SIBO, that does not make them feel great. So we'll tell them, if you don't feel well, if you're getting gas and bloating and you're being constipated, that you've got to really watch your veggies and cook them, saute them, roast them. And that's I would say 25% of the people that come to our program have that issue.
Right, so we have this pressure on ourselves to eat all these raw veggies, but in the end, they may be causing problems for some people.
Yeah.
And that's really like at the core of the conscious cleanse, is find what works for you, because we are all so unique. And just because it works for me doesn't mean that it's going to work for you or for Joe. And we see people who have bumps in the road, who go through detox symptoms. We give people a lot of tips and tricks for moving toxins through the appropriate channels, but it doesn't, you know, sometimes they're detoxing too quickly, right? And so there's that, you know, sometimes we see people who feel worse before they feel better, and you know, you can only drink so much water in the day to get the toxins out.
Right.
But again, you know, that's kind of what the coming back to the support, and then coming back with teaching people to tune in, and so that they become their own expert. You know, we always need outside guidance. I feel like the outside guidance, I mean, we wouldn't be where we are today without that, certainly, but teaching people a little bit more self-reliance, I think, is important too. Like, tune in, how does that make you feel? You know, again, is something that we always come back to as well. And
Which has been lost.
Yeah.
has been lost. Yeah.
And somebody who comes to the program and can't eat veggies and fruits that are raw, that shifts oftentimes. So they can eat the raw veggies, and then they do the program 6 months later and their gut feels better. And that happened to me. I tried a raw food diet after my accident, and I ended up in the hospital. I literally ended up having a colonoscopy at the age of 27 with all these, 60-year-olds because I had sharpshooting pains. And
Gas pains?
they weren't gas pains. No, they found inflammation in my ileum, but I think it was a lot of that raw food I couldn't handle. So, but now I eat raw veggies all the time, and
So that's a great thing. I think the body is a very profound healer, and if you just give it the right tools and remove the obstacles, it knows what to do. That's the most fun
And it takes time. You know, you don't roll up to your 40th or 50th or 60th year, doing overnight, right? So like you didn't get into a poor state of health overnight. So it's going to take time to reverse that, right? I think people can get a little impatient with that.
Right, I say that all the time with detox. You didn't accumulate these toxins overnight, and you're not going to get rid of them overnight.
Right.
It takes a long time to pull them out, so
Yeah.
give yourself time.
Just be patient. And stick with it. Just keep doing what you're doing.
Right.
Because it does work.
Right, and I like what you said about, there's no plateau for where you can go. Just keep going, because you never know where you're going to end up in terms of optimal vitality.
Right. Do we have to, age? Like we have this idea of how we're going to age because that's what's all around us. But, I think that together we can create a new paradigm where we actually are, redefining what it means to age gracefully.
We're going to be ageless.
I'm sticking with you.
I was like, you look great.
What about pregnancy? Can you do the conscious cleanse when you're pregnant?
Yes.
Yeah,
both of
so
us have.
I actually, when we were piloting the Conscious Cleanse, I had a 9-month-old and I was newly pregnant. And my midwife, who's in town here, she kept saying, what is this cleanse thing that you're doing? I'm not sure I feel comfortable with this. And I told her what was on the Conscious Cleanse, and she was like, well, that's the way I want you to eat anyway. So again, it comes back to this piece about listening to your body. And of course, there are modifications with pregnancy with the Conscious Cleanse, just like anything. But it's a very, very safe way of eating on all stages of life. It's food. It's real food. It's not deprivation, not restricting calories.
And people getting pregnant. I got pregnant first shot out of the gate as an advanced maternal age. And people said, you're never going to get pregnant. It's going to be hard for you. And I was like, all right. Even went to see a fertility specialist before I even tried.
Because you were so sure.
Because I was like,
everyone was convincing
everybody
her.
was like telling me this. And I was like, I'll just I'll go see somebody. And then literally first time we tried, my little one was born.
Wow.
And so we see that all the time. You get clean. Your gut gets healthy, and I think I was the healthiest I'd ever been in my life at the point I got pregnant. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
We talk about cleansing before or detoxing before you get pregnant, and you were kind of doing that without the major detox like healing crisis.
That's right.
Just with food.
That's right.
Yeah.
How does the conscious cleanse differ from other cleanses? That's a big question.
What are the bullet points?
Yeah, it's a no-fail program. You come and you're not going to fail, no matter what you do, because we see up-leveling in any way is a win. So if somebody came and they're like, I'm still drinking my coffee and my wine, but they're doing a green smoothie, we're like, awesome. All right, you did it. Now let's see what else you can do. So it's like a very positive approach to health rather than what you're not doing.
Great.
It's not a diet. Yeah.
You have teachable moment, we have failing forward. So, right, if you have a slip up, notice it, notice your reactions, physical and emotional, and then move on, get back on the, get back on the program.
Yeah.
But it's also designed, which is something we've already talked about, for you to be an active participant and for you to be an active investigator. And that's, a lot of people are talking about reading labels on products, and that can be really challenging in and of itself, but that's certainly part of it. It's part of being becoming an active investigator is, knowing what's in your food. If you're eating mostly whole foods, you don't have to worry about that piece of it, which I particularly like.
Yeah.
But it goes beyond that, which is what we were already talking about, which is tune in to see how that food makes you feel. Because just because, a raw kale salad works in my body doesn't mean that it's going to work in someone else's, right?
Yeah.
So we actually had someone in our program say, I really want to do the conscious cleanse, but I don't like kale. I can't do it, can I? We were like, of course you can do it without eating
Like,
kale.
what? Kale's overrated. I mean,
Right.
kale,
As if it's the only dark green leafy vegetable.
exactly.
Yeah.
The other
But
thing
it does get a lot of press. It's like it has
Yeah.
its own PR agency now, right?
I was going to say, piggybacking off of that is that we don't think that there's like one right way of eating. So that when people come, if they're like, okay, I eat meat, we're like, great. If they're like, okay, I don't eat meat, we're like, okay. I eat meat, Jules doesn't. There's like a universal principle that 2/3 of your plate should be veggies, and then the other third is going to be maybe a non-gluten grain, or it's going to be meat, or it's going to be nuts or seeds or legumes, and see how people feel. And then at also different stages of their health, they might be at different eating patterns. Like when I started this,
Or seasons.
Yeah, I was eating non-gluten grains. Now I don't. I up-leveled and I feel better. When I don't, I just eat veggies and animal protein. So it's
honoring.
It's not a one size fits all.
That's right.
And there doesn't, in my opinion, exist anything healthy that is one size fits all.
Yeah.
So we know you have the Conscious Cleanse, which is a guided 14-day cleanse, but you also have something called the 80/20 program. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Right. So our Conscious Cleanse online program came first, and then we wrote the book. And what we realized is that people would do our program, and then they would come to us and say, I feel so great. What's next? How do I live this as a lifestyle? And that's always really been part of the plan, which is get them in the door for 2 weeks, help them feel better, and then help them to shift into what we call our 80/20 plan, which is basically cleansing as a lifestyle. But the 80/20 is, 80% of the time you eat in a way that you would on the Conscious Cleanse, or eat in a way that you have discovered for yourself as your perfect blueprint. And that's what we help people discover on the cleanse. So eat that way the majority of the time. And then the other 20% of the time, go nuts. Have what you maybe culturally want to enjoy. So if that's a glass of wine or two, if it's a tequila, or for me, it's a chocolate cupcake at a birthday party, whatever it is. Some people it's going to be pizza, or it's going to, whatever it is, you enjoy that 20% without the shame and the guilt. And when you're clean 80% of the time, that cupcake or whatever it is, it's going to affect you way differently. One, you're not adding the guilt and the shame, but then two, you're a clean vessel, and you're able to process it in a different way.
And how do they do a 20%? Because people, if they do the math, it's like, this is 4.7 meals or something. And that's not what works for everybody. So we can't just say, we used to coach people very broadly and say, this 80/20. And they're like, well, this doesn't work. And, for me, if I went and ate a chocolate cupcake, it affects me on more than it does for Jules. So gluten and dairy and eggs are always off my plate.
Right.
I just don't eat them, even part of my 20%. Right. So it's identifying the trigger foods for people and saying, that puts you to a place where you really don't feel good. So it's not part of your
Choose
plan.
something else for your 20%.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, choose wisely. And you can always, then what we realize is people might choose something on the path. When they're first coming off the cleanse, their 20% is going to look different than if they then come back and do the Conscious Cleanse, which people do. They, over time, up-level that 20%. Yeah. So they might, get to this point where they're always doing a gluten-free or a grain-free type of a pastry, or, cookies if you like to bake at home. But so it's also an education to learn how to up-level those favorite foods. Like as you were saying that, I was like, I would have a chocolate cupcake, but I would never sit down for a bowl of pasta. But I would have zucchini noodles, until the cows came home.
You pick your poison. You pick the things that you love the most.
Yeah.
The psychology of eating is really complicated.
Yes.
So
Right.
it sounds like you really offer a lot of support around that, because it does take some support to make these changes that are so ingrained in our brains.
Yeah.
Right.
So on the 80/20 plan, you become a member, you have access to Q&A questions with guests, you're a member of a Facebook community, you have access to recipes, and
We do a manual when you sign up, and it's a 70-page manual with the recipes. It tells people how to do a good, better, best on certain foods. We have meal plans, so it really guides people through the process. And then every month we do a call, and we just interviewed you, which was really wonderful for our members. And we do a mini magazine monthly where people get that, and it's on a topic. Like gluten, and then we give recipes, and we also say, like, okay, well, what's in your sunscreen? You might start thinking about that. So we go beyond the food, and we really look at lifestyle and beauty and health.
Right, huge.
The environmental aspect. And so people do that for a year, and they get every month that support. So it's
So for it's a year.
it's for a whole year.
Neat.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much. I feel like we could talk for several hours straight.
Yeah.
So glad that we're in the same community and can support each other with our mission statements. And if you'd like to learn more about the Conscious Cleanse, go to consciouscleanse.com. You can get a free e-cookbook and recipes and support. So thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.